Imagine everyone collaborating, putting students in the center. CBE Ignited, making it possible.
Well, good afternoon. This is Roxy Morant from CBE Ignited, and I am so happy we have our two guests with us, Tom Vander Ark from Getting Smart. Hey, Tom, good morning.
Hey, Roxy. Great to see you.
And Richard DiLorenzo from the Mid-Al Valley, also with CBE Ignited. Thanks, Rich, for joining us.
It's an honor, Roxy, as always.
So I appreciate the time. I know you're a busy guy. You just got back from Michigan. You're constantly traveling, Tom. I've known you for a long time, but it's amazing to me as I watch you creating articles and podcasts, 2 or 3 a day, and getting out there. I'm just curious as I look through your website. It's pretty humbling, as I know the work we're doing, very system-wide stuff, but you are out there encouraging and helping others. And the whole goal of this podcast is to encourage those educators that are in the trenches right now. So a golden nugget, words of wisdom from Tom Vander Ark. If you could say anything to encourage educators today, what would that be?
That's a really big question. Powerful learning experiences. Powerful learning experience. How to help more kids have more powerful learning experiences. I'm these days I'm really focused on learner experience, and I'm surprised, sort of reignited by the power of big learning experiences. It's often in project-based learning, sometimes in extracurricular learning, but those experiences that are multi-dimensional, that are challenging, that are extended, that are often collaborative, that are difficult to author and can be challenging to assess. But how to have more of those experiences that really build the most valuable the most valuable competencies and are things that you remember 20 years from now.
Great answer. Thank you. And I know that you help states set policy and stuff. How do you make that something that's across the board equitable for all?
It's a great question, Roxy. And I mentioned powerful experiences because one of the downsides of the way we see people implement competency-based learning is the gravity of smaller and smaller and easier to assess items. And then a few years down the road, you have a system that's super granular, but not very engaging. So how do you fight the gravity of easy to assess stuff, not necessarily important? I think we're just beginning to learn how to do that. Well, my favorite answer, Roxy, is the Real World Learning Initiative in Kansas City is so interesting because it started about 8 years ago, as many regional initiatives do, with a portrait of a graduate process, and then right before the end, instead of polishing off the portrait, they stopped and said, let's just agree on powerful learning experiences that all kids need. And so they created a regional agreement around internships and client-connected projects and entrepreneurial experiences, as well as IRCs and college credit. So it's very unusual that there's an agreement around experiences. We since have added some competencies to those experiences, but the goal and the shared agreement between these 40 systems is to pack more powerful experiences into the traditional structure. So that's an example. Places like Kansas has adopted these powerful experiences as a graduation requirement. There's that direction in Missouri. We also see in the career-connected learning movement a lot of interest in internships and in these client-connected projects. They're starting to show up more as graduation requirements. So I think that's one way that systems are encouraging powerful experiences. The Getting Smart team spent the morning thinking about demand creation for rich learning experiences. Because right now, there is still, between teacher leaders and parents, there is a lot of respect for traditional signaling systems. We think in part the future of competency education is its intersection with the credentialing system. And that as we get better at capturing and communicating priority competencies starting in high school, that we can build demand for those kinds of experiences. The catch is that we think we need not only to capture skill credentials, but experience credentials, or at least to verify experiences by capturing the metadata around these rich experiences, so that a learner wallet, maybe even with a transcript, is communicating skills and experiences, so that students can tell their story to say, here's the skills that I've developed by virtue of these rich experiences that I've had.
It's intriguing, Richard. I'm curious, as we think about other places in the world, right? America, we've got it down. I feel like there's a lot of people that come here or look to America to set the goals for what should happen in the rest of the world. And yet our students, our workforce right now is competing worldwide. So if we set competencies, what's to keep it from being corrupt, or to make it a system-wide thing that other countries then could honor and get on board with? Any ideas about that?
Yeah, I like what Tom says though about those rich learning experiences, because it's just the motivation there becomes so intrinsic, and it's because it's really about engagement, and you add the rigor to it, and you add the application, and again, to create systems around that, that's the challenging part.
Yes.
And I think the competency brings that all together, Roxy. And again, as I travel around the world and I work with countries, I see very, very little of the innovation in education. It's just more dressing up this old system to look a little bit different, but basically it's the same. And I would say low engagement, low rigor, low application, but it's just doing the same thing with a different name on it. So that's encouraging to hear what Tom says about and again, when we ask systems to move into a CBE climate, it's a huge, huge risk, because so many things you have to change. And Tom's approach, or what Tom's really promoting here, is much simpler, and it's a stepping stone to get there. It's just like, we know when we go into a system, the first question we ask is, what do you want your graduates to look like? And how do you measure that? And that is not as threatening as, we're going to change your transcripts, we're going to change your honor roll, we're going to change your report card. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but that was my thoughts.
Well, Rich, I want to just share a reflection. I can't tell you how many times this month alone that I've thought about you and Roxy, and that my lessons learned in Chugash 25 years ago. And here's why: because I talk these days a lot about learner agency as being at the top of my list of new priorities. And then when I think about the best examples of where learner agency was really developed, I go back to my visits at Chugash, where I saw learner agency at work. And it's because those learners owned the outcomes, they understood them and appreciated them, and maybe most importantly, they knew how to move from one level to the next. So they owned their own progress in a way that I had never seen before. And that's such a foundational aspect of developing learner agency. I think we're still trying to find out how to do that at scale. But I just want to acknowledge that fundamental lesson that thousands of us learned because of the work that you guys did in Alaska starting 25 years ago. That learner agency is more important than ever today, and you really gave us a roadmap for how to begin to develop that. This cognitive offloading it's real and it's a challenge, and it's requiring us to rethink what just learning, but what youth development looks like. And I'm simultaneously very excited about the new possibilities of what learners can do with AI. And by that, I mean, I actually think we need a new set of expectations for what you can do with smart tools to create value in your community. I think that's the new goal of school, is to equip young people with the sense of agency, both in what they can do and what they can do with smart tools. So I want learners to have the confidence of knowing what tools to use in what setting. I want learners, the new focus on agency is now problem finding and opportunity recognition. It's finding a problem in your community worth working on, right? And then having the problem solving skills to be able to construct value using smart tools and deliver it to your community. So that's a new set of skills. For me, it's a new way to think about agency. All of that stuff brings up really gnarly assessment and competency questions, because we're now, at least in part of the time, inviting kids to do work with smart tools. And so that, I think that changes how we think about assessment and progress reporting and probably graduation requirements. Big, hairy questions for the next few years.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Richard, any last comments about how we're going to give these educators out there struggling with all this some hope and know that there are some answers?
Yeah, I think that Jessica and I, who Jessica is part of our team, Tom, we're trying to figure out, why can we not scale these best practices? And we really feel there's a huge void in our leadership that people are put in these positions, but they have never been given the tools and the processes of how to elevate their impact. And so, that was the genesis of us writing this new book called The Learning Curve. And it really is trying to give these leaders, whether you're a teacher leader or administrative leader, really the tools and processes of how to really ignite the potential of not only their students, but the whole organization. And so that's what gives me hope. And then hear Tom articulate kind of the granular pieces of it, how it fits so nicely into what we're trying to help leaders do. So
Thank you. Tom, any last words? You want to talk about what Getting Smart is offering right now to help educators?
Well, first of all, I super appreciate the leadership that you, Roxy and Rich have shared with the sector for 30 years. It's more important than ever. One resource that we just issued last week is called a Public Microschool Playbook. And it's a guide for education leaders, particularly school district leaders, on how and why they can create new small schools in their district, sometimes even inside their own schools, a school within a school model. We think new school creation is more important than ever, because it's a chance to invite teachers and learners into the future, to pilot new learning models, to create new opportunities, often linked to their community. And this comes at an interesting time where most districts are shrinking and threatening to, or even closing schools, and yet we're inviting them to start new schools. We do think creating the future really relies, at least in part, on some new school creation where you really can create a space for teachers and learners to bring together smart tools and create a coherence in sort of a new and special way. So we'd invite people to check out that public microschool playbook.
Thank you for making a difference today with CBE Ignited.